When the go-go bird came, the enemy disappeared. That wasn't a slogan, it was a verdict, delivered by the men who watched it happen. Infantrymen, pinned in the dirt, down to their last magazines, would hear the rotors and see the thing come in low over the tree line, and the gunfire coming at them would simply stop, because what they were looking at wasn't a gunship, it was a flying fortress. Take the biggest cargo helicopter in the United States Army. Bolt 2,500 pounds of hardened steel armor onto the airframe. Then hang two 20mm cannons, a 40mm grenade launcher, 5 machine guns, and 19 tube rocket pods off its sides. Give it a full 360 degrees of fire, so that no matter where the enemy stood, something was already pointed at him. A single pair of these aircraft could put more lead on a target than 3 standard gunships combined, and keep doing it twice as long. They called it guns a go-go. And here is the part nobody tells you. The most heavily armed helicopter of the entire Vietnam War, the one the enemy fled from on sight, the Army built only 4 of them. 3 were destroyed. 1 survives. And most people have never heard its name. This is the story of all 4. The problem it was built to solve was simple, and it was killing men. The whole theory of air-mobile war depended on helicopters dropping infantry straight into a landing zone. But a transport full of soldiers, flaring to land, is the easiest target on the battlefield. Something had to ride shotgun, something had to suppress the landing zone, escort the transports in, and stay over the fight long enough to matter. The interim answer was the UH-1 Hog, a Huey bristling with guns. But loaded to its limit, the Hog could barely make 80 knots. Too slow to keep up with the formation it was supposed to protect. Too light to carry enough ammunition. It ran dry fast. So in 1964, the Army went looking for something bigger. A review board weighed the candidates and landed on an answer that sounds insane the moment you say it out loud. They would take the CH-47 Chinook, a 33,000-pound cargo hauler, and turn it into an attack aircraft. Boeing Vertol's first proposal was to convert 11 of them. Only 4 were ever funded. Every other Chinook in the inventory was too valuable as a transport to spare. The conversion was brutal and total. Out came the troop seats, the cargo hook, the winch, the heater, the soundproofing, anything that wasn't carrying its weight. In its place went the armor and the arsenal. In the nose, an M75 40mm automatic grenade launcher in a chin turret, aimed by the co-pilot. The crews called it the Chunker. On the stub wings, 2 fixed M24A1 20mm cannons, firing forward, around 700 rounds a minute each. Under the wings, on hardpoints, your choice of a 19-tube 2.75-inch rocket launcher or a minigun pod. And then the machine guns. 5 crew-served stations, 2 firing out each side and 1 mounted on the rear cargo ramp. That ramp gun was the trick. It gave the aircraft its full circle of fire. It meant the go-go bird could keep shooting a target even after it had already flown past it. The pilots sat in armored seats the crews nicknamed Iron Maidens. The engines were uprated to 2,850 horsepower apiece, so that even fully loaded for war, this monster could keep pace with the transports it was built to protect. It was, in every sense, a contradiction. A bomber's payload on a helicopter's frame. The Army had built a battleship and given it rotor blades. This wasn't spooky, the Air Force gun platform that orbited high overhead and rained down area fire from 3,000 feet. The go-go bird worked low. It could hover. It could escort, it could land, and it put cannon, rocket, grenade, and machine gun fire directly onto a point target from treetop height. Then the man in charge needed a name. As the legend goes, the detachment's first commander, Lieutenant Colonel William Tedesco, offered $25 to whoever could name the new gunships. They were sitting in a club with go-go dancers when a crewman suggested calling them the Go-Go Girls. Tedesco shot back, "Guns a go-go." The name stuck. So did the reputation. There were 4 of them. Each one earned a name. Each one earned a fate. Stump jumper, cost of living, birth control, easy money. They reached South Vietnam in the spring of 1966 for a 180-day combat trial split between Vung Tau and An Khe. The verdict came fast. During the evaluation, the guns destroyed every single target they were assigned. And in the field, the effect was exactly what the design promised. By one veteran's account, near Trang Bang in July of 1966, a company of the 25th Infantry Division's Wolfhounds air assaulted into a hot landing zone and got pinned. Rockets and small arms fire poured in. The medics were overwhelmed. 2 Huey gunships worked the village and could not stop it. Then a go-go ship came on station. It made one pass. The enemy fire ceased. That was the pattern. Hueys would hammer a position and fail to break it. One run from the go-go bird ended the argument. In the Songray Valley, in August of 1967, 2 of the gunships dumped more than 8 tons of ordnance in a single operation. This is what infantrymen meant when they said the enemy disappeared. The aircraft was so heavily armed, it never had to ration fire. It just kept firing. The machine took punishment too, and stayed up. By the crew's own telling, Easy Money was shot down along Highway 13, her pilot hit in the foot, a gunner wounded in the head. The gunner was bandaged up, recovered, and went right back to his post. There was even a strange bonus to the program nobody had planned. At a distance, you couldn't tell a go-go bird apart from an ordinary Chinook transport. So, by reputation alone, enemy troops reportedly grew reluctant to fire on any Chinook at all, in case the next one shot back. But the same size and weight that made it terrifying also made it fragile in ways the enemy never had to exploit. The first one died without a single shot fired at it. In August of 1966, Stump Jumper was taxiing on the ground at Vung Tau when it struck a parked transport Chinook. The rotor imbalance tore the gunship clean in half. No one was killed, but the flight engineer lost an arm. 2 months into the experiment, the program was already down to 3, and the worst was still coming. The 5th of May, 1967, near Bong Son, in Binh Dinh Province, the aircraft was Cost of Living, the prototype, the first of the breed, rushed into Vietnam to replace Stump Jumper. 8 men were aboard. She rolled into a gun run. On the left stub wing, the retaining pin on the 20mm cannon worked loose. The gun swung upward, and it fired, high explosive rounds, straight into the forward rotor. A warrant officer flying nearby watched the whole thing. He described the front rotor blade collapsing upward and tangling into the rear blades. The aircraft dropped like a stone for the better part of 3,000 feet and hit the sand. With all the ordnance it was carrying, it burned for a long time. All 8 men were killed in seconds. They were Second Lieutenant Paul Hicks, Chief Warrant Officer Edward Weidenbach, Staff Sergeant Ariston Talon, Specialist 4 Gary Rodriguez, Sergeant Joaquin Arzuaga, Private First Class Pike Mayo, Specialist 4 Melvin O'Neill, and Private First Class William White. It was the deadliest moment in the program's short life, and the cruelest. The most heavily armed helicopter of the war had just been destroyed by its own gun. There's a single go-go patch, cut from the wreckage's forward crown, kept to this day at the Army Aviation Museum, a relic of the men who flew her. 2 down, 2 left. The last stand came at Huey during the Tet Offensive, the 22nd of February, 1968, the battle to retake the old imperial city. The cloud ceiling sat at 200 feet, low enough to ground the fast jets and leave only the helicopters, flying low, in rifle range, with nowhere to hide. The last 2 go-go birds were both there, Birth Control and Easy Money. Pulling off a gun run near the Citadel walls, Birth Control took heavy fire, lost oil pressure in its aft transmission, and auto-rotated down into a dry rice paddy, roughly 600 meters from entrenched enemy, well within range of their rifles. She was down. The crew was trapped in the open. What happened next is the reason men still tell this story. Easy Money, piloted by Major Alan Matthews, did not circle and call for help. She landed, right beside the wreck, under intense fire. While the gunners worked the 40mm and the 50 calibers to hold the enemy back, Birth Control's crew scrambled aboard. Then Easy Money lifted off, overweight, taking hits, men wounded inside, and she clawed her way to safety at Camp Evans. Birth Control never flew again. Before anyone could mount a recovery, enemy mortars destroyed her where she sat in the paddy. When one of her crewmen heard she'd been blown apart, his reaction was 4 words. She went out proud. And now there was one. Here is the strange, quiet truth at the center of the whole story. Guns A Go-Go did not fail in combat. In combat, it was everything they had hoped for. The evaluation officially called it a tactical success. It was beaten by arithmetic. By February of 1968, only easy money was left, and Army doctrine said gunships had to operate in pairs, which meant a single one could not legally be sent to fight. There were no spare Chinooks left to convert because every Chinook the Army owned was needed to haul troops and guns. And a new rival had arrived, the AH-1 Cobra. Slim, fast, cheap, built from the same engine and parts as the Huey. It did the escort job for a fraction of the cost and presented a fraction of the target. So the Flying Fortress lost, not to the enemy, to a leaner machine and to the Army's own hunger for transports. The detachment was disbanded on the 1st of April, 1968. Easy Money outlived the war as a maintenance trainer, then drifted through Army depots for decades, her identity buried under coat after coat of paint, until someone scraped down to the metal, found the name, and recognized what they were looking at. She was restored, her guns were rebuilt, and she was put on permanent display at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. She is the only one left, the single survivor of the four. The go-go bird was a magnificent idea that arrived a little too early and a little too big. It proved a hard thing first, that overwhelming, sustained firepower from the air could break an enemy's will all on its own. The Army took that lesson and carried it forward, into the Cobra, and eventually the Apache. The go-go bird just never got to be the one that delivered it.